Usually I wait until later in the day to do these videos because we get really good injury updates, but I have some commitments tonight. I've celebrated my birthday, my dad's birthday tonight, so I'm going to be out. So we got to do it a little earlier today, going through every matchup to identify the must start and sit wide receivers for week 6 fantasy football. But I'm already one of the only YouTubers who's working on a Saturday to get you this kind of content. So please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, getting into our first matchup, it's that overseas game in London this week, the Denver Broncos at the New York Jets, and I would say Courtland Sutton is a must-start. So this is an interesting one to talk about because I've got Garrett Wilson as a high-end flex, and obviously both of those guys are taking on high-profile cornerbacks, Sutton taking on Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson taking on Pat Surtain. So everybody asked me, what's the problem with Pat Surtain and Garrett Wilson if there's not a problem with Sutton versus Sauce Gardner? And I say to this, Sauce Gardner is vastly overrated. As a pure cover corner, Sauce Gardner does not even come close to holding Pat Surtain's jock. It's literally not very close at all. Pat Surtain is the best cover corner, followed by guys like Trent McDuffie, Derek Stingley, those types of guys. Quinyon Mitchell. Sauce Gardner is not that. So I've got no issues with Courtland Sutton. I think he will actually destroy a lot of Sauce Gardner this week. So I think Courtland Sutton is a great play. Plus, he's just on a better offense with a better quarterback. So Garrett Wilson, I know, has been fantastic this year. And ordinarily, I would say he's a must-start guy because he's overcome quarterback issues this year. But I have a feeling Pat Surtain is going to spend 100% of his time on Garrett Wilson, which will make it tougher for him to produce a really good fantasy day. Troy Franklin, I think, is a mid-end start still. I think you could get away with starting Troy Franklin in this matchup. And Marvin Mims, if you wanted a big play, he's a low-end guy, but you still could get a big play if you're trying to shoot between him and like Alec Pierce, for example. I would still choose Alec Pierce, but I do think Marvin is playable because of the big play upside. And of course, no other Jet wide receiver is still relevant. The Seattle Seahawks at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and JSN, of course, is must start. Nothing to really discuss there. Brian Thomas Jr. against the Seattle Seahawks defense. I don't love the matchup already. I don't view the Jacksonville Jaguars as good offensively as I view Tampa's offense. And Tampa's offense just took a sledgehammer to the Seahawks defense last week, proving they can be beaten. But I still don't know if I believe fully in Trevor Lawrence like I do with Baker Mayfield, for example. And Brian Thomas Jr., he's just not having tons of chemistry with Trevor Lawrence so far this year. So I'm going to avoid the headache of calling Brian Thomas Jr. a must start. He's a decent flex, though, for sure. And then I would say to you, Torrey Horton is very, very close to becoming like a really good flex play. I think Torrey Horton should be on people's rosters by now because he is evolving into this wide receiver 2 in Seattle. Now, of course, Cooper Kupp is still out targeting him, and he's a low-end flex option for sure because of the amount of work that he gets usually. But Torrey Horton's the big play guy, and he's definitely just has more athleticism than Cooper Kupp at his point of his career. So I think Torrey Horton's a better play, and I will say this. Keep an eye on Travis Hunter this week. The Jaguars just made a move for Greg Newsome earlier in this week, and it kind of went under the radar, but they traded for a corner this week, and I almost wonder if it's because they want to keep Travis Hunter off of the field more as a corner so they can use him more as a receiver because he's just better as a receiver than he is a corner for them. So I'm wondering if we start to see more Travis Hunter as time goes on. Keep an eye on him. He's not a high-end flex play yet. He's a mid-end play that I would play above Cooper Kupp. And I would say Dyami Brown may be flexible, but I just don't trust this offense enough. And I don't trust Dyami Brown enough on a weekly basis to be able to really consistently get you flex production. So I'm going to put Dyami Brown on the bench most situations. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Miami Dolphins is our next matchup here. And Jalen Waddles must start. I mean, the one thing I was looking for last week, and I got it, which was more downfield work. They're using him like they used Tyreek Hill, which is he's basically their only downfield weapon besides Darren Waller at this point. So Jalen Waddle, the target share that he got last week, the downfield work he's getting now, he's definitely a must start against a weaker and beaten up secondary with the Los Angeles Chargers. Keenan Allen's a high-end flex. He actually leapfrogged Quentin Johnston, and Ladd did as well. This is in order of how I would play these guys. Now it's Keenan, Ladd, then QJ, because QJ is a true questionable as of the time of this filming with a hamstring injury. Now, I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if he's not. Like I said, had to film this earlier in the day than I usually do, but I do think Quentin Johnston is, going to open up some opportunities for Keenan Allen for Ladd McConkey, who I already believe all 3 wide receivers are absolutely playable, especially in this matchup versus the Dolphins defense. They're all high-end flex options, and if QJ plays, he's the guy I want the most, but because of the uncertainty right now, I would put in Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey over Quentin Johnston. And Malik Washington, guys, I think he's a fine hold for now. Maybe see if he evolves his role. But a lot of those targets, man, they're still coming at the line of scrimmage. And you saw it impossibly be the case that he had 4 catches for 0 yards last week. And that was because a lot of what I've been seeing this year is him getting everything at the line of scrimmage. Until that role develops, do not come close to putting him in your starting lineup. The Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens is our next matchup here. And Puka Nacua is obviously a must start. Devontae Adams is a must start as well. The matchup is tremendous versus the Ravens secondary. Zay Flowers is flexible, but he's also questionable as well. He may or may not go in this game. There's no Lamar Jackson already, so Zay Flowers probably not the best flex option. I would definitely play the Chargers receivers over him. I would play Brian Thomas Jr. over him. I'd play Garrett Wilson over him. Zay Flowers is not that great of a flex option if he plays, but especially without Lamar Jackson, I don't want that much to do with him. And I'm going to bench everybody else. Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, again, quarterback play just isn't good enough for this. And Tutu Atwell, the game's not going to be competitive enough for him to really make a mark on this game. The Arizona Cardinals at the Indianapolis Colts is our next matchup, and Michael Pittman is must start at this point. The guy's floor has proven to be like 12 to 14 points in a half PPR format because the guy has been getting plenty of targets on a weekly basis. Daniel Jones has been super efficient with those targets to Michael Pittman Jr., so I don't see a reason against the Cardinals defense you would put Michael Pittman on the bench. The guy has a relatively okay ceiling. Like, I would say it's 20 points, but his floor is just so solid that it's like it is a excellent wide receiver 2 play. If you need 12 to 15 points, you're going to get that at the very least with Pittman. And I will tell you this is probably the first week that I feel really solid about playing Marvin. Not even great. I don't feel great, but I feel solid about playing Marvin because he's playing his dad's old team. I have to believe as a competitor, that would wake you up a little bit. That's the one thing that I'm going to cling to with Marvin. And honestly, I don't care if it's Kyler or Jacoby Brissett. I think that he'd be fine with either one of them in this matchup. Kyler apparently is, questionable still. I think he's going to play in this game. But even if it was Jacoby Brissett, I wouldn't move down Marvin Harrison Jr. much, if at all. But I do still think that Kyler's going to play. Again, matchup against the Colts defense, I don't love it. But I do love the opportunity of playing his dad's old team, which has to mean something to this guy who has had lots of confidence issues this year. This is a week I think it's okay to play Marvin as a high-end flex. And Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, I think, are mid-tier flex options. Alec Pierce has been better than Josh Downs in fantasy when he's been available. He hasn't been available the past 2 weeks, but he's back now. So Josh Downs probably isn't going to be that good, but I do still think has evolved a little bit and developed a little bit of a role where it could be sustainable, but still I think Alec Pierce is the better play. But I want to go back to Marvin really quick because this is kind of, I want to test how far people are willing to go with Marvin. If you want to line up Marvin Harrison Jr. on fsroundup.com with Zay Flowers, I want to go post that poll. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to look up Zay Flowers right here, click on chat, then click on start a poll, go down to week 6 and add Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm going to post this poll and see where everybody else is lined up with this one. And if you want to start your own start sit poll and you need a question answered, go to fsroundup.com. It's completely free to post a start sit poll. And also go help other people out with their decisions as well by voting in their polls. If you want to get access to elite features on the site, such as the automatic waiver wire tool, a team breakdown for me if you want one, access to my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis, and many more, you could do that by becoming a premium subscriber at fsroundup.com. It not only supports the channel, but it's going to benefit you in so many ways because we're overwhelming you with value on that site.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh, no.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, our next matchup is the Dallas Cowboys at the Carolina Panthers, and George Pickens is obviously a must-start in this matchup. No more CeeDee Lamb still, so you've got George Pickens locked and loaded, ready to go. Ted McMillan, high-end flex. I would play him over Marvin because this matchup against the Cowboys is one that I think he could take advantage of and possibly get in the end zone for the first time this year. Look, the good thing, and I've been saying this all year with Ted, is that he has the target share on his side. Even if Jalen Coker comes back at this point, I'm not as in on Coker as I once was in the offseason. Ted McMillan is their guy in this offense, and I think against the Cowboys defense, it's a really good opportunity for him to get in the end zone. High-end flex play, and Ryan Flanoy is just a better player than Jalen Tolbert. I got, people were coming after me because Jalen Tolbert wasn't in the top 30 of my wide receiver rankings last week. Yeah, look how that would have turned out. This guy has every opportunity without Kevontae Turpin, and he's done nothing. This guy, he's just not good. So Ryan Flanoy at this point is just a better player than Jalen Tolbert and a flat-out better option in fantasy than Jalen Tolbert is. And I'm going to bench Xavier Legette. Like, last week doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not putting him in my starting lineup still. The New England Patriots at the New Orleans Saints, and this one is definitely full of high, mid, lower end flex options. Stephon Diggs at this point, high end flex option. The guy does look like he's becoming that target hog in this offense. Drake May is playing really good football. The Saints defense is definitely beatable. I think Stephon Diggs is a high end flex play. Would I play him over Marvin? I don't know. That's a little close. You might want to post that poll if you have that decision on fsroundup.com because that's a close one for me. Chris Olave is definitely a higher end flex option because of the target share that he gets. The Patriots defense, not exactly my favorite matchup necessarily, but I do still think that Olave getting basically 10 to 15 targets on a per game basis is too much to overlook as a pretty high end flex option. And Rashid Shaheed, still the big play guy and has a higher ceiling than Chris Olave, but he has a lower floor than Chris Olave as well. So they're not that far off of my rankings, but I do prefer Chris Olave because of the consistent target share that he sees rather than a more unstable one with Rashid Shaheed. And Kayshon Boutte, I do think is definitely below all of these guys, but I will stand by this. Maybe it's just a bias thing. I just like Kayshon Boutte for some reason. I do think he's still flexible in this matchup versus the Saints because at this point, he's really showing to be their wide receiver 2 behind Stephon Diggs. The Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. DK Metcalf, very high-end flex play. He's right up there with Garrett Wilson, basically. I would very much play DK Metcalf over Marvin, over guys like Brian Thomas Jr., over Stephon Diggs. The guy is just a big play threat. And I don't think that the target share really consistent must-start opportunities, but I do still think coming off a bye week against the Cleveland Browns defense, I do think there's big opportunity here for DK to have another big day. And I'm going to play Isaiah Bond still. If I'm playing a Browns receiver, I'm playing Bond over Jerry Jeudy. This has just not looked good, and they've got Dylan Gabriel now, who already seemed to like the tight ends better, and he's just playing very conservative football, so he's not going to be tossing that many down the field. The only way it works is if you're in a full PPR format, and one of these guys has like 5 catches for 50 yards. That's the only way it works, but either way, they're mid to low end flex options, and Calvin Austin is out of this game, so you do not play Calvin Austin. The Tennessee Titans at the Las Vegas Raiders is our next matchup, and there's no must starts here. I'm definitely going to play the 2 Raiders receivers over the Titans receivers, though. Listen, Geno has been bad, but I do still think that he can put up enough yards to make a wide receiver good. Jacoby Myers still is the wide receiver 1. There's no Brock Bowers there. I do think that he's going to be a fine play this week against the Titans. And Trey Tucker, I do still think, is just in a better spot than the 2 Titans receivers because Cam Ward just hasn't been very good. And I don't think that many people have fought me on that because it's kind of obvious how bad he's been. But I'm kind of curious to see if people really do think that Calvin Ridley is a worse play than Trey Tucker because for me, it's not that close actually. Calvin Ridley, I did rank him 1 spot above Elick Amander this week because he did start to become their wide receiver 1 again, and he is a better player probably than Elick Amander, but I still like the chemistry between Amander and Ward better than the chemistry between Ridley and Ward. So I do still think they're very close. They're really back-to-back my rankings entirely. So I do think Calvin Ridley, maybe I'd play him over Elick A-Manor, but they're not that far off. They're both mid and flex options. But the matchup is really good against the Raiders. The San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is another doozy of obviously a Emeka Egbuka, you play him, but Kendrick Bourne, I did rank him above Juwan Jennings this week. Ricky Pearsall out, Brock Purdy out. So that means that Kendrick Bourne's chemistry with Mac Jones is the deciding factor. Juwan Jennings is a true questionable as of this time. We don't know if he's going to go or not. But either way, I'm going to take Kendrick Bourne at this point. If he plays injured, I'll take Kendrick Bourne, but they're not that far off. This was a recent update I just made to my rankings this morning on fsroundup.com, so you will probably not even see it materialize until after this video when you go check the rankings if you are a premium subscriber there. But I did make the switch. I have Kendrick Bourne over Juwan Jennings by a couple of spots because of the chemistry with Mac Jones. But I do think Juwan Jennings is still a better player than Sterling Shepard over in Tampa Bay, who I do consider a relatively good flex option because of how Baker Mayfield is playing. And also, there's a chemistry there built in as well from college with Sterling Shepard and Baker Mayfield too. So I'm not ruling out Sterling Shepard. I think he's a fine mid-tier flex option and one I would play over Tez Johnson, but I do think both those other receivers are really good flex options as well if you are in a significant pinch. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Green Bay Packers is our next matchup. Lots of flexible receivers. I'm not budging on my opinion of Ja'Marr Chase. In fact, the only thing that made me want to budge a little bit was finding out that he's got an illness and he's going to play through it, so I like the flu game narrative. That's the only thing that's making me consider maybe putting Ja'Marr Chase in must start, but I'm not doing it. High-end flex, obviously, he will always be a high-end flex regardless of matchup because he's an elite player. The problem is, and I don't understand why people see it differently, it just doesn't make sense. If you actually have a brain and you watch football, I don't understand how you could ever think that Joe Flacco is going to offer more upside than Jake Browning. Jake Browning actually does fine with fantasy football wide receivers when he's given time to throw, and he has more mobility than Joe Flacco. If you have a brain, and if it works, and if you haven't been clocked on the head too many times, you shouldn't see Ja'Marr Chase any different with Joe Flacco than you would with Jake Browning. High-end flex because he's an elite player, but there's a lot of potential for this one to not work, of course. Romeo Doubs, I do think is a better play than T. Higgins. I would play him over Matthew Golden. I'd play him over Dontavian Wicks. The guy has touchdown upside, and that's the bottom line. Every one of these receivers, their target shares are too inconsistent for me to rely on any of them, but I will play Dobbs over Golden by a couple of spots, and I'll play Golden over Wicks, who I do think is a better play than T. Higgins as well. T. Higgins, the only question would be if Ja'Marr Chase misses, how much higher would he go? I'd play him over Wicks. I'd probably play him over Golden, but I wouldn't play him over Romeo Doubs because I just think, again, this Cincinnati passing offense is so disgusting. Not because of the receivers, of course, but because of the quarterback play and the offensive line being able to hold up for either of those guys. The Sunday night matchup, the Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously a must-start in this high-flying matchup. And I ranked Xavier Worthy down since the injury news. Now, he's going to play, so that's a good thing, but he's banged up. And I just don't fully trust him. Based off the work that we saw last week, a lot of it wasn't down the field. And of course, in this high-flying matchup, I'm going to lean towards playing Worthy. Like, I would still play Worthy over Ja'Marr Chase. I would still play Worthy over guys like Quentin Johnston. I would play him over Brian Thomas Jr., but I don't think he's must start because I would play Garrett Wilson over someone like Worthy because of the target share that he sees consistently. But again, in this high-flying matchup, you want options, and Worthy is the best one outside of Amon-Ra. Jamison Williams is very, very close with Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton and J-Mo both high-end plays because they both have big playability, and especially Tyquan Thornton has more upside over the middle of the field than I think J-Mo does. But in reality, guys, J-Mo has so much upside in this game. We just haven't seen it in recent weeks. But don't forget that J-Mo is a very electric player who could take it to the house anywhere on the field. I think J-Mo's a high-end flex play in this matchup right here that has an over-under over 50, and I think Marquise Brown, for that example and that reason alone, is playable in this game as well. The Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons, one of the doubleheaders on Monday night, which is so stupid, but Drake London, I would say, is must-start. On the lower tier of must-start guys, but I do think he's a good play against the Bills defense, which just hasn't looked very good. And Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, I'm going to play them as decent flex options in this game because I think the Falcons defense is beatable too. And I will say this, I think that both of them get a bump up if Kincaid does not play in this game, which as of right now, he's a true questionable. But I'll still prefer Shakir over Keon Coleman because the consistency is just flat out better with Khalil Shakir than it is with Keon Coleman. Keon has the higher ceiling, but Keon Coleman is so much more worse off with a floor than Khalil Shakir is. And Darnell Mooney, since he's questionable and I just don't like him enough, I'm not going to put him in starting lineups. It's just not worth waiting until Monday night to find out if he plays or not. And the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders, the last Monday night game. Rome Odunze is a must start. This guy has been tremendous. And Deebo Samuel's a must start too. Now, I will tell you something personally. I have Deebo Samuel in basically every redraft league, but one of them in particular. I picked up Luke McCaffrey in the event that Deebo doesn't play because he's questionable. I expect him to play. They're basically monitoring this heel injury that he has, so I expect him to play, but I was able to make room, drop Chris Rodriguez for Luke McCaffrey just in case Deebo doesn't go because everyone's out for Washington if Deebo's not there. All of their starting wide receivers, Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Deebo Samuel are all out if Deebo misses this game, and that means that Luke McCaffrey, I think, has the best upside outside of Deebo Samuel. So I do think Luke McCaffrey, even if Deebo does play, is a mid-tier flex option, but I would definitely play DJ Moore and his target share over Luke McCaffrey if Deebo plays. So let me know what your wide receiver room looks like in Week 6, and if you want to see the full top 30 wide receiver rankings for this week, click on this video right here.